Hey, what's up, everybody? Hammer Metal Reviews here once again. It is that time of the month, time to talk about my favorite albums that were released this past month, August 2024. The summer has been a little bit slower for metal releases, but nonetheless, I've still got 20 albums that I think you should go check out. Maybe it's not the strongest month overall over the course of the year, but there's still a handful in here that are really awesome albums that I think you should go listen to. As usual, majority of my list is black metal, but I've got some sprinkles of all the other subgenres in here as well. I will say the first 10 picks on this list from 20 down to 11, some of them are just decent albums that I think are okay, but as we get into the top 10, we get into some really killer stuff. So without further ado, I'm just going to get right into this. You know the spiel, you know the deal on these videos by now. No need to ramble on. Let's kick it off. So starting off my list, I am going with Dungeon Keeper and their album Chaos Sorcery Strike at Midnight. So this is some German old school black metal, major Celtic frost vibe with the riffs and just overall style. This is throwback black metal. So if you like your black metal old school variety, think first wave black metal, this will be right up your alley. It's got the typical black metal raps, maybe not anything too innovative or original here, but nonetheless, if you just want a solid throwback black metal album that's a lot of fun, go check out Dungeon Keeper. Up next, a band that's basically making this list just on reputation and my previous enjoyment of them alone, and that is Dark Tranquility with their new album Endtime Signals. A band that needs no introduction, Swedish melodic death metal legends. I will say this album is it's decent, it's okay, but it's not really one that I see myself probably returning to a ton. It just doesn't excite me in the same way that their earlier material does. I love early Dark Tranquility, but over the years, their later albums just haven't really been my cup of tea. This one is okay. It's got a few decent tracks on there, but like I said, probably not one that I'm going back to a lot, but it's okay for the style. If you're into the band, I'm sure you will enjoy it. Up next, another one that's making this list almost by default, and that is HammerFall with their new album Avenge the Fallen. Swedish power metal legends. Much the same as what I just said about Dark Tranquility, I'll say here. Not that it's the same style of music, but it's another band where I really enjoyed their early albums, and over the course of their later career, it's kind of not necessarily fallen off. It's not like they're really putting out any bad albums, but it's just not really ever anything new or anything that's super exciting to me. There's still decent songs here, but it all kind of starts to sound a little samey to me compared to you listen to their last album, then you listen to this. It's not that much to differentiate it, but there's still catchy choruses. It's still a lot of fun. It's still HammerFall style power metal. It's still enjoyable. It's one I'll probably put on here and there, but it's not going to go down as an all-time classic. Nonetheless, decent album. If you're into power metal, go check out HammerFall. All right, up next, let's switch up the genres here once again. Go with Mourners Lament with their album A Grey Farewell. So this band is from Chile. This is some death doom or doom death. It's probably heavier on the doom side than the death side. I will say this album's pretty typical of the genre. It's kind of exactly what you would expect here, but overall it's very well done and it's enjoyable. When I say enjoyable, it's not going to put a smile on your face. It's going to put a frown upon your face because this is doom that we're talking about. This is very sorrowful music, but nonetheless, it is a very well executed album. If you're into the style, go give this one a listen. Up next, I'm going with Black Birch and their self-titled album. So this is some Swedish atmospheric or melodic black metal, female-fronted, so you can kind of hear it in the vocals, but if I didn't look up who was in the band, I might not have even known that. I've only listened to this album a couple times because it just came out, but I did enjoy it, so I'm not going to do too much of a deep dive here. A lot of these albums, this is just based on first impressions. I need to spend more time with them, but it's a solid black metal album that you should go scope out if you are into black metal. Up next, going with The Mantle and their album Violent Cosmic Future. So this is some US progressive death metal, heavy on the prog side for sure. I'd say for fans of later era death or cynic, you'll see a lot of those similarities here. Musicianship on this album is truly excellent. Maybe there's a little bit too much wankery at points, too much in the progressive direction. I'm not a huge prog guy. Every now and then a progressive album really strikes me. But yeah, I can't deny the musicianship that's on display here. Pretty solid overall album. Go listen to The Mantle. Up next, something completely different. Concrete Winds with their self-titled album. So this is a band from Finland. It's a hard band to describe. It's like death metal mixed with grind, mixed with noise. Like, it's very aggressive and relentless, furious music throughout. Like, it's non-stop. It's just in-your-face insanity. If that's your kind of thing, you will absolutely love this. Like, it will just peel your face off. It's non-stop. It's relentless. It's intense. But, yeah. I'm using all the different adjectives here. But, yeah, it's a solid release. Go listen to the chaos that is Concrete Winds. Up next, I'm going with Deceased and the new album Children of the Morgue. So this is more of an, I'll say, a legendary band, but I feel like they never really got the respect as other, like, US death metal bands. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar with them, go check out all their stuff. This is like death metal mixed with thrash and even a good healthy dose of like traditional heavy metal with some of the melodies and guitar licks as well. It's just a super fun album. Like, the vocals are unhinged and kind of throwing in all these different elements, like bringing in like a new wave of British heavy metal style melody or solo, and then all of a sudden flips on a dime to some thrashy death metal. Like, it's really cool, their approach that they take. I will say there's maybe a few too many interludes, and this album does drag a little bit, but nonetheless, it's a solid slab of death thrash with some unique flair and some great unhinged vocals. So go check out the new Deceased, and go check out all their albums if you're unfamiliar. Up next, I'm going with an EP. I usually don't include EPs on this list, but I wanted to include this one, and that is Calderum with their album, EP, sorry, not album, Desecration of the Bastille. So this is a one-man black metal band from Spain. This has a really like medieval aesthetic and sound that I dig a lot. It's got these nice acoustic interludes as well that almost remind me of like early Ulver. So mixing that in with like medieval style black metal, it just really works. It's short, it's compact, but it's really well done. So I felt like I had to mention it here. Up next, I'm going with Demiser with their album Slave to the Scythe. So this is some US black thrash. This is just fast, catchy, and fun. Everything you want in a black thrash album. Another one that, yeah, it's not unique at all. There's a ton of bands that have this sound, but it is fun as hell. It's well executed. It's tight musicianship, and it's just a blast to listen to. I'm sure this would kill live. So hopefully I can see them one day. But yeah, just a ton of fun. If you're into black thrash, check out Demiser. Last album before I get into the top 10. In 11th place, I'm going with Föhn or Föhn. I'm not sure on the pronunciation. And their album Condescending. So this is some funeral doom from Greece. This is absolutely crushing. It's so slow and heavy, but it's got some weirdness to it too that gives it some uniqueness. They bring in saxophone in some spots, which you don't often hear in funeral doom, and it's just got some weirdness throughout as well, like some spoken word moments, but overall, it's a very unique and solid funeral doom album. So go check out Föhn or Föhn. I apologize if I am mispronouncing the band name. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, a solid album worth listening to. All right, like I said before, those first 10 were decent, but now we're going to get into better stuff. So the top 10 here, let's go. In 10th place, I'm going with Phaethon and our album Wielder of the Steel. This is some epic heavy metal from the UK. It features a couple of the guys from Föhn, but when I say that, there's not really any black metal to be found here. So you think Föhn, you're thinking atmospheric black metal. This is just epic, sing-alongable, catchy heavy metal. There's still a couple screams thrown in there, here and there, but mostly the vocals are like in a clean, low register. Almost reminds me of like Blazing Right a little bit with the timbre of his voice. But yeah, just catchy songs that have you pumping your fist. You want to go grab a sword. You want to chug some ale. Solid, epic heavy metal album. Haven't listened to it a ton yet. This one just came out, but it's already cracked my top 10 because I'm digging it a lot. This one could climb even higher as time goes on. Up next in 9th, I'm going with Aphelion and the new album Reaperdawn. This is some blackened death metal featuring a lot of the guys from Necrophobic. I will say the new Necrophobic that came out this year was absolutely amazing. I don't think this one quite stacks up to it, but it's still a very solid album. I did like their debut a little bit more than this, so go check out that if you haven't heard it yet. But this album is still pretty solid overall. You got a song like They Fell Under Blackened Skies. absolutely killer. I wish there was more songs on the album like that, but nonetheless, the musicianship on here is great. There's not really too many complaints. It's just hard for me not to compare it to Necrophobic because of so many similarities between the band, and I think I gotta give the edge to the new Necrophobic from this year. But nonetheless, go listen to Aphelion, Reaperdawn. Pretty solid, catchy, blackened death metal album. Speaking of classic death metal, let's go with Nile, with The Underworld Awaits Us All. So brutal, technical death metal legends from the US, bringing in their Egyptian mythology and themes. Legendary band that doesn't really need any introduction here. The drumming on here is insane as ever. And I will say this is a very solid album. It's one of their best in their later stages of their career for sure. I don't know as it's going to live up to the all-time classics. I don't think it's on that level, but it's a very solid death metal album. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's hard for me not to compare it to classics. Always with these like bands that have been around for so long, you're always going to be looking back to kind of compare to past albums, which is almost unfair because if this was a debut album from some other band, I'd probably think it's awesome. And it is still an awesome album, but it's just not the best thing Nile's ever put out. But nonetheless, go listen to it. It sounds like I'm being negative. I'm not. It's a very good album. Go listen to Nile. Up next in 7th, I'm going with Fleshgod Apocalypse and the new album Opera. So this is some symphonic death metal, very heavy on the symphonics, and the name of the album Opera is very fitting here. That brings in a ton of like operatic female vocals interspersed in with the harsher vocals. And this album almost has like a poppy quality to it. Like it's very catchy. These choruses will stick in your head. It's like simple songwriting, but then with technical playing, it's hard to describe. Like the drumming is very fast and intense. And I'm sure like the pop nature of some of these choruses will probably turn a lot of people off from this album, but I actually think it's pretty fun. I'm digging it a lot. It's very fun. It's catchy. I accept it for what it is, and I like it a lot. The female vocals suit these songs, and mixing all these different sounds together in just the Fleshgod Apocalypse way. It's a really well-executed album that's really catchy, and it's a ton of fun, and that's why it's in my top 10. Up next in 6th, I'm going with Sturm Walker and the debut album Kageleiter. Probably mispronouncing all of that, so I apologize. This is a one-man melodic symphonic black metal band from Austria. The man behind the band is the guy from Ancient Mastery, who's one of my favorite modern black metal bands. So as soon as I saw that, it had me very interested. This, as opposed to Ancient Mastery, this is more influenced by early Demu, at least to my ears. That's what it sounds like, early Demu Borgir, with the keyboards and symphonics and just the early black metal stylings. And overall, this album is pretty great. I don't know as it quite compares to the epicness of Ancient Mastery, but once again, I'm always comparing these projects to other projects that these members are in. It's a hard thing not to do, but nonetheless, take this alone for what it is, and it's just a solid goddamn throwback black metal album that I strongly recommend you go check out. All right, now we are into the top 5, my 5 favorite albums from the month of August. I'll give you a second to try to guess them, because I just need a sip of water here. All right, kicking off the top 5 in 5th, I'm going with Vile Rites and their album Senescence. This is some US progressive death metal. This has got an old school death metal vibe with the riff styles, but then with prog thrown in. But I wouldn't say it's too hard into the progressive side of things. It still is, but it doesn't overwhelm you. It's more of an old school death metal album just with some progressive leanings, which is more the style that I enjoy than things that are way too progressive and just bring in some elements of death metal. But yeah, this is just really unique and it's outstanding. The songwriting and the song constructions here are really great. And look at that album art as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. This one, if you haven't heard it, strongly recommend it. Go check out Vile Rites. You will not be disappointed. All right, up next in 4th, I'm going with some Canadian content with some prog. Here I am saying that I don't really like prog, but then this next album is a progressive album, and that is Ancients with their new album Beyond the Reach of the Sun. So best described as extreme progressive metal. Obviously, there's hints of death metal in here. But this is just really another one that's so focused on the guitar work, and it's just outstanding. It's a very guitar-centered, guitar-oriented album, and the guitar work really shines. full of beautiful, clean vocals. And yeah, they bring in the harsh vocals here and there as well, but it's just really well done. I'd say comparisons would be maybe to a band like Opeth. It's not exactly Opeth, but there's some Opeth-isms in there for sure. It's just really full of solid playing and songwriting, and the guitar work really shines. If you just want to hear some great solos and just great riffs overall, and you're into prog, you will not be disappointed by this album. That's why I have it this high on my list. All right, I got 3 more to go. And up next in third, we're sticking with some more Canadian content with Spectral Wound and the new album Songs of Blood and Mire. So this is black metal from Quebec, more on the raw black metal side, but with a ton of melody. And even when I say raw black metal, it's got really crisp and clean production. So that almost sounds like opposites. Raw black metal doesn't really have clean production, but it's like cleanly produced modern black metal in a raw black metal style, if that makes sense. But they're really bringing in even more melody than in the past, and these songs are just catchy and almost anthemic, like they will be great in a live setting. I can just feel that. It's still got a little bit of punky attitude to it and just infectious riffs. You will be singing along and playing air guitar. Like some of the songs on here just have like gang chorus parts, whether it is singing join us, like fuck, it's just goddamn great. I love this band. I love this album. Does it stack up to their previous album? I don't know. I haven't spent enough time with it yet, but it's a goddamn great black metal album. They've just had a string of a few great albums in a row, and this one's no exception. Songs of Blood and Mire, new Spectral Wound. Don't skip it. Awesome black metal album. Up next in second, I'm going with Oxygen Destroyer and Guardian of the Universe. So I did a full review of this album, so go check that out for even more details. I won't just repeat myself here, but in case you missed it, this is a band from the USA that plays like blackened death thrash. Definitely for fans of bands like Angel Corpse, Absu, Early Creator. Kind of throw those sounds together in a blender, and it is just relentless attack of great riffs and great vocals. It is just so aggressive but fun as hell. Everything's centered around like kaiju films and monsters, and it's just so headbangable. It's so much fun. Goddamn amazing album. That's why it's in second place. So that just leaves one. My favorite album of the month of August is Winter Sun with Time 2. So I know there's going to be a lot of haters out there that are going to shit all over the album just because of everything that went on with it. And I understand. Shenanigans aside, though, I'm trying to look at this just from a musical perspective and throw all that other stuff out the window. And I have to say, I dig this album a lot. If you're unfamiliar with Winter Sun and all the drama, I'm not going to get into the drama, but if you're unfamiliar with the band, this is like symphonic melodic death metal that's very epic in scope. It's got progressive moments. It's almost cinematic in nature, bringing in some power metal elements, some folk elements, all over the scope of melodic death metal in the Finnish style. I will say that Winter Sun's debut album is an album I still hold in very high regard. I don't think they've ever matched that, nor probably will they ever. And then Time 1 came out forever ago, 12 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was maybe a step down from the debut, and then so much stuff has gone on before this album came out. They had released the 4 Seasons, which I thought was another step down. It was okay, but it wasn't quite as good as anything that preceded it. But now, Time 2, the album we're talking about today, massive improvement over the 4 Seasons. Does it stack up to Time 1? I don't know. Time will tell. I haven't listened to this enough yet to compare it to these earlier albums. I know it's not as good as the debut for sure, but that's just because I goddamn love the debut. But I think this is pretty close to on par with Time 1. It's dynamic. There's so many layers here. Like, you have to spend your time with this. There's so much to unpack. But the songwriting is great. Yeah, maybe there's no song that's like Sons of Winter and Stars from Time 1. That's one of my favorite Winter Sun songs ever. Maybe there's no like song that stands out that much, but there's still a couple great songs on here like The Way of the Fire and Storm. Those are killer fucking tracks. So yeah, haters are gonna hate on this album for no other reason than to hate on it, but give it a fair shot. It's catchy, it's epic, it's well constructed, and it's just this style symphonic death metal done right. Symphonic melodic death metal, I should say, in the Finnish style, done right. So yeah, is this going to go down as like one of my favorite albums of the year? No, probably not. It's my favorite of the month, but it's August and there's not a ton out there necessarily. But I think it's a really good album. Is it album of the year material? No, probably not. Is it the best thing that's ever been released? No, probably not. But is it a solid album that you should listen to? Yes, I think so. So go give it a fair shot. Anyways, enough rambling. That's my list. Those are my picks. As usual, I'm sure I missed a ton of releases. I can't listen to everything. So give me your recommendations down below. I always get at least a few every month from you guys, and I always appreciate it. So give me your picks for favorite albums of the month down below. And until next time, HammerFall Reviews out.